Hey friends, welcome back to Seed and Sparrow Homestead. So the original opener to this video, I accidentally just deleted. This is actually, this time that I'm talking to you now is at the completion of everything we're gonna do in this video. So I figured I might as well create a new opener. So today we're gonna be harvesting some sweet potatoes. I'm gonna take you outside and do that, and then we're gonna come on inside and figure out what to do with them because there were issues. So stay tuned. Okay friends, so first off, Grant has one volume level and it is very loud. You'll be hearing him in the background. My mom was also over visiting, so you'll hear her and I talking some too. But I'm gonna take you along for some of the harvesting. This took me a good long while. I really had to dig for them. Man, I'm doing really great for tearing them up. I'm gonna be making some sweet potatoes tonight, it seems. And do you remember how I had dug up that little patch? I don't know if it was 2 videos ago, and I was like, man, this is really anticlimactic. Well, spoiler alert, this was also very anticlimactic. Well, I've chopped about 4 already. I'm gonna have to go in and make sweet potatoes. You can take some home.
Yeah, they sound yummy. So some of them get little like our other potatoes and
yeah, it's the same thing. Like
yeah.
This here is a root that would have turned into one. See how skinny it is?
Yeah.
It would eventually fatten
really?
up. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Wow, you really have to dig through to find them, don't you?
Yeah, you do, and because they're kind of dark in color, they blend in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's some all the way down there.
Don't you have like a little hoe that would be helpful?
I have that.
You don't have like one of those little shovels? Why? Isn't that a normal gardening tool?
You'd think I'd have the tools necessary, but I don't.
You would think.
Yeah, just a little one. See.
Yeah. Is he allowed to go in the chicken pen?
As long as he has his boots on. The other day he went in without his boots on and he had chicken poo all over his feet. I mean, of course he was very upset.
He had, what, bare feet?
Yes, he went in with bare feet. So I've decided I really need to invest in, like, I guess it would be like a pitchfork to help harvesting. I could have used one many times this year, and I guess I've just been holding out because I really want to find a vintage one, and I just haven't been able to, so I might have to compromise on that just for efficiency's sake, and just go and buy a new one. I'm sure you can tell here I was struggling, and my mom was jokingly giving me a hard time, like, come on, Kelsey, you're a gardener, have the right tools. And I mean, having the right tools does come in handy. I used my big garden spade for most of this, and I think I catastrophically wounded about 70% of my harvest, and it was a small harvest, so it's time for some better tools for the job. Oh, I mean, you can fold it up on the hangers there, on the drying rack. Yeah, just fold it.
Do you put them on hangers?
No.
So how do you get the wrinkles out?
Throw it in the dryer when I want to wear it.
Okay. All right, so I'll just take them all off and fold them.
Yep, that'd be great.
Kids are watching TV.
My mom was just asking me about the infamous laundry rack that's in like all of my videos. We had laundry out drying, and she was over for the afternoon and asked me how she could help. So she folded up the laundry for me, which she's just always such a blessing. She is helping me homeschool Eleanor. This is Eleanor's first official year of schooling. And my mom is splitting up the work with me, which is just amazing. Really helps me out. I do have a lot on my plate, and I want to make sure that Eleanor is getting all the attention she needs, and my mom is she's fantastic. She homeschooled my brother and I, and she also homeschooled 2 other children who were not her own. So she's definitely got some experience under her belt, and she's just amazing. I'm so thankful for her. She and my dad actually started their first garden this year. So many of you have actually asked me, like, where did I learn all of this from? And quite honestly, most of what I know in terms of gardening and preserving and cooking is really self-taught. I did learn a lot through Charles Dowding and through Jess at Roots and Refuge and Luke at MI Gardener. Those are really my 3 sources whenever I had questions. That's where I would go. But most everything else I've just learned on my own through research and getting experience in the garden. All of my preservation knowledge has been self-taught. I did not grow up around anyone who preserved food. I think the extent of what I knew that could be preserved was jams, because my one aunt would give us jams every once in a while, and I'd always be like blown away, like, oh my word, you can make your own jam. And I just thought it came from the grocery store. So that only came to me after I started gardening. And then I realized I needed to figure out ways to keep this good, to figure out how to preserve it and really make it last. Cooking and baking. Most of that has pretty much been self-taught as well. I mean, I always cooked and baked with my mom. She did teach me a whole lot, but she'll tell you herself, she's not very fond of baking. She doesn't love doing that. She doesn't mind cooking. But really, like, the love for that probably came from my Nana, because my Nana just loved food so much. And she really loved her sweets. And something that I'd always do with her was watch Food Network. We watched all of the shows, like, from 10, 15, more than that. Goodness, I'm forgetting how old I am. Like 15 to 20 years ago. We would watch them together, and we'd make lots of baked goods around the holidays. She was a fantastic baker. So she really instilled that love of good food in me. And then I think from being homeschooled and just having that home life and those home skills as a part of my daily life just made me appreciate it a whole lot. So there's some random info about me. I've been meaning to do a Q&A here soon. As soon as we get back from HOA and some things calm down and I have the garden all sorted, I'd like to actually do a Q&A. So be on the lookout for something over on the community board where you can ask all of your questions, and I'll probably throw it in a video too. But this is about all the harvesting footage I have for you, because there just wasn't a whole lot of harvesting to do. A little bit more. 28.2. Not terrible, not great. Alright, friend, it's a new day. I decided to take it easy last night, and I had to put away all of the laundry my mom folded for me, and there's some other things that needed tidied up. I had to stop and make dinner, and I just needed, you know, an easy evening. So I am picking it back up today, and we are going to work on figuring out what to do with all of those broken sweet potatoes. It's pretty much like more than 50% of the harvest. We're gonna have a lot of sweet potatoes to preserve. So I'm just getting my workspace all cleared up. I gotta grab an apron. But let me show you just exactly what we're working with. So we are working with this box of sweet potatoes. And we have 28 pounds here. The majority of them are not going to be able to put in storage. There's a few that I found that just have like some minor scratch marks that will heal over and I can throw them into storage, but I have seriously injured most of these. And there are quite a few that have these big splits in them. I don't know if that was like a water issue or a pest issue. I'm just thinking it's environmental. I don't think it's disease, but I'm gonna have to see what I can salvage out of these because there is some bug damage where it was split, and there's quite a few that are like that as well. So a really poor harvest this year. I am not so pleased with it. I mean, I got something, right? I'm thankful for that, and I'm going to put it to use. But I really want to figure out how I can do better. The first year I grew sweet potatoes, I had really great success, but it seems each year after that, it's going downhill, and I'm getting less yield and less like storage worthy potatoes. So I don't know if it's the location of where I have them planted. It is a bit shadier than other locations in the garden, but I have switched it around each year, and it hasn't really made much of a difference. The soil is the same as all of my other beds, and I've had great success with other crops, so I'm not sure that is it. It wasn't super compacted. I don't know if my climate just isn't the greatest for sweet potatoes, but I do know some other people local to me that have had success, so I'm determined to figure out what I'm doing wrong. I don't know if I need a different variety. I'm growing Georgia Jet and Beauregard. And I mean, maybe I can just try a different variety. So if you have any insight for me, I'm in zone 6A, 6B. We have like a 160-day growing season here in South Central Pennsylvania. So if you have any insight for me on how I could get a better yield, let me know, because I had 28 pounds of potatoes and that came from 25 slips. So that's just over a pound per slip. And that just sounds terrible. So help me out if you can. Right now, I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna find all the ones I can actually keep in storage, and then I'm gonna get everything else washed up, and we're gonna get started. Here are the ones that I think I can put into storage for later use. And then here's a big old sink full of either cracked or severed potatoes that I'm gonna wash up. I tried to scrape off as much of the dirt as possible rather than get it in the sink here. Now I'm gonna go through and clean these guys up. All right, I'm just gonna put these sweet potatoes that I'm going to store in a box here, get them downstairs and off of my table so I can clean it back up. And then I was hoping to avoid peeling all of these potatoes. I was just going to roast them and then just slip the skins off after they were roasted. It's usually pretty easy to take off then, but these are like the ugliest sweet potatoes I have ever grown. I don't know what the deal is here, but there's so many cracks and crevices. I just think it's gonna be better to peel them and cut away all the yucky stuff and then roast them. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to peel all of those. So as soon as I get these downstairs, we'll work on that. So I did just want to address all of the cracking that I found. When I did some research, it looks like that's just from excessive water. We did have an odd season this year. We had super dry conditions for like most of spring, and then summer hit and we'd get these torrential downpours of inches of rain happening like once a week. So it wasn't like a nice, steady, consistent watering. And we couldn't really control that too much. We did have soaker hoses in these two beds that we would turn on every night for about an hour, just to give them some consistent watering, but we couldn't really do much about the torrential downpours we were getting. And I'm not sure if that had anything to do, impacting the yield either. So I got these all peeled up. I decided to roughly chop them just to make the roasting process go a bit quicker. So I got all of my potatoes peeled, and then I rinsed them and cubed them and then rinsed them again. So I've got 2 trays here I'm gonna put into the oven at 400 degrees, and I'm gonna check them around 30 minutes. I want them to be fork tender. Most of the recipes we're doing today, we need mashed sweet potatoes. I might freeze some of just the roasted sweet potato cubes, but I'm not sure yet. So they're gonna go into the oven 400 for about 30 to 40 minutes. Sweet potatoes have been roasted. You can get a fork into them, and we're gonna start on our recipes now. So we're working with some sweet potato gnocchi first. That's one of the more important recipes I wanted to get done. We love those. Usually you'd use a potato ricer for the potatoes when you're making gnocchi. I don't have one. I don't know if I'll ever have one because I have a small kitchen. I don't have a lot of storage space, and if you're taking up room in my kitchen, then you have to serve multiple purposes, and I think the only thing I'd really use that for is making gnocchi. So I just make do with an old school masher. I don't want to work these too much and like have them get all gummy, but I just want to mash them up a little bit, and then we'll start adding in the rest of our ingredients. I'm gonna make like a triple batch. I want to freeze these, and I'm also gonna make some for dinner tonight. So we're just gonna get these mashed up, and then we're gonna add in some flour, ricotta cheese, Parmesan cheese, some eggs, and some salt. And we're just gonna mix this all together. So I have about 6-7 pounds of mashed sweet potatoes in here. It's probably about 9 medium to large sweet potatoes. Now I'm making a triple batch. The recipe that I follow calls for 2 cups of ricotta cheese per batch. I only have 2 cups, so this is gonna be a bit modified for me today. I will put the actual recipe down in the description for you, but I'm just kind of making it up as I go. I don't ever get worked up if I don't have quite enough of the ingredients. You know, I'm kind of like a go with the flow cook slash baker. I just make it work. So I'm gonna throw in 2 cups of ricotta cheese in here. Mash that in there a bit, spread it out. And then per batch you need 1 egg. So I'm gonna throw in 3 eggs. 1, 2, and 3. Mix that up a little bit in there. I'm gonna add a good bit of salt, about 6 teaspoons worth. It's 2 teaspoons per batch. And I'm also gonna add in probably, I don't know, a cup's worth of Parmesan cheese, freshly grated. Mix that all together before we add in our flour. The flour we're gonna add in until it just comes together and forms a dough. It'll still be a little bit sticky. We just need to be able to work with it and cut it. Now we're gonna start adding in our flour. It can be anywhere from like 8 to 12 cups. So I'm just gonna start out with 6 and just keep adding from there until I get the consistency I want. It's kind of about feel. You just honestly figure it out after a couple of times. All right, there's 6 cups. I'm gonna fold this in together, and then I'm probably gonna turn it out here onto the table and work it further. I was just trying to avoid some of the initial sticky mess and do it in a bowl. All right, so that was 6. I'm definitely gonna add in another 3 or 4. It's very, very sticky, and it hasn't really made like a nice dough yet. It will be sticky at the end, but we need some more structure in here for it to hold its shape. So I'm gonna get these 4 in, and I'm probably gonna turn it out here onto my table and work it out. I wanna get some of this flour in so I'm not making a huge mess. The ricotta cheese is gonna give it like a nice, airy, fluffy texture. And then that Parmesan cheese just gives it a little bit of like a nutty flavor. And those two things mixed with that sweet potato, so good. I think I'm gonna make like a browned butter sauce with some sage from the garden tonight. Serve it with some sausage. Simple, but super flavorful. All right, let's turn it out here. We're gonna work it all together. I think this will be good to get it to roll out and hold its shape. Now the only negative to not using a potato ricer, sometimes you're left with some chunks in here, which truly does not bother me. I'm not a perfectionist in the kitchen. As long as it tastes good. That's truly all that matters to me. I mean, I do love when things look nice, but some little chunks of sweet potato is not going to bother me. All right, I'm gonna cut this up into smaller sections so it's easier to handle and work with. See, there's like a chunk of sweet potato there. I don't really care. It's all good, it'll taste yummy. All right, let's cut this, I'm gonna say into 4 pieces. Start to work it into a nice long log. Sometimes it's easier to get it to roll if there's not a ton of flour on the surface. You don't want to add too much flour because then it can get kind of gummy and overly chewy and also a little bit dry.
I'm always trying to think of the quickest way to do things, you know, smarter, not harder. Instead of wrestling with sticky dough, I like to just kind of make it into a thicker log and then cut it into smaller logs. And then I will just take each of those smaller logs and roll it out into the diameter that I want and round off the edges a bit. It actually makes the process go fairly quick.
All right, so now we're ready to cut. So I like to sprinkle some flour over the tops. Otherwise, the pieces that you cut, they're all just gonna end up sticking together. And I'm gonna put these on a parchment-lined baking sheet, and I'm gonna flash freeze these. That way they're not stuck together at all before they go into the freezer. So I'm just gonna roll them a little bit closer together and make sure they're kind of rolled in flour. All right. And then I like to do them a bit on the smaller side. They're gonna plump up when you boil them. So keep that in mind. These end piece is a little funky, so I'm gonna shape them up a bit nicer. So I'm just gonna go through and cut all these up. And from this point, you can leave them just like this. They're not super fancy, but they'll work just fine. They're just like little dumplings. And then if you want to, you could either use a fork or this is a gnocchi board to create the little ridges on them. I don't really feel like taking that extra time today. I got lots of projects I want to work on. The day is slipping by very quickly, so we're just gonna leave them plain and that'll be just fine. I'm gonna roll them around a little bit so all the sides are covered in just a light dusting of flour, again, so they don't stick together. There is truly nothing like fresh gnocchi or pasta of any sort in general. So, so good. And it's so easy. It is a little time consuming, but I promise you it's worth it. That's why, you know, any sort of project like this, I like to do multiple batches because it saves time in the long run. While I'm putting this effort in, why not do a few batches of it so that I don't have to do this again for a little while. All right, I gotta get this mess cleaned up. All of the gnocchi are on trays in the freezer, so I'm gonna let them harden up a little bit before we portion them out into bags. I need to get my work area here all cleaned up, and we're gonna move on to some baked goods. I think I definitely wanna do some sweet potato muffins. I saw a recipe for sweet potato biscuits with my family. Okay, so I love sweet potatoes, anything sweet potatoes. My kids sometimes do. It seems they have to be in the mood for it. My husband doesn't really like them at all. But if I kind of disguise them and mask the flavor a little bit in a baked good, I think they will go over just fine. So we're gonna hide them. Get those veggies in there somehow. We're gonna move on to some sweet potato muffins. If you don't have sweet potatoes, you could also use pumpkin, some sort of squash as well. It's just a basic muffin recipe. So I have 3 cups of pureed sweet potatoes in here. I'm gonna add 2 cups, there it is, 2 cups of flour to this bowl. I'm just using an organic all-purpose flour here. Just a white flour. We're gonna throw in some cinnamon, 2 teaspoons worth, and then baking powder, baking soda. We're gonna do a teaspoon of baking soda. That's not soda. Teaspoon of baking soda. And then we're gonna do a 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. Half teaspoon of salt. And we're gonna do some sugar. I'm using coconut sugar. You can use whatever sugar you have on hand. Calls for 1 cup. We're gonna do 3/4 cup of oil. I'm just using olive oil. I know that's not a liquid measuring cup, but it's okay. Then we're gonna add in some eggs, store-bought eggs, because my chickens still aren't laying. I think we got, this whole week from 12 chickens, we got 5 eggs. I did notice some of them are molting too, so it's okay. These are some eggs from a farm, but they still don't compare to our eggs. Like, they don't taste as good. But they will have to do. So 3 eggs went in. I need to wash my hands now. And we're gonna add in a teaspoon of vanilla Whoops, that came out the wrong way. I always add in like way more vanilla than it calls for. I love vanilla. And then we're just gonna stir this all together. Let's use this. And we're just gonna get our batter scooped into our liners here. Gonna fill them about 3/4 of the way. Decided I was gonna make a little crumble mixture to go on the top. So I just have some melted butter mixed with some flour and some coconut sugar. Usually you would use brown sugar, but I'm using coconut sugar. I'm just gonna sprinkle that on the top of these guys. And then these will go into a 350-degree oven for about 25 minutes. While those muffins are baking, I want to get started on dinner. My husband should be home soon. Grant's gonna be up from his nap, and I want to have this done so I can move on to some other recipes I have in mind. So it's a really simple meal. We're gonna do some gnocchi. I have some chicken apple sausage that's sweetened with maple syrup that I'm going to brown in this pan here. So I'm gonna get that in here. And this is already cooked, so I just really want to brown up the edges a little bit, and then we'll take it out of the pan and we'll make up our sauce for our gnocchi. All right, this is nice and brown, so I'm gonna remove this to a plate. And then to this pan, I am going to add 2 sticks of butter.
So I just want to get this butter nice and brown. I'm gonna add in some of those roasted garlic little dollops that we had made and I froze. I'm gonna throw in half of one of those. And like I said, we're just browning this about over medium heat. Takes a couple minutes. Don't want to burn it, so do keep an eye on it. I ran out to the garden. I grabbed some fresh sage leaves and I chopped them up finely. I'm going to add them in here, about a tablespoon's worth. It's really to your taste, to your liking.
I'm waiting for my water to start boiling for the gnocchi. I have this tray out here, so I figured I'd start filling some bags. And in my last video I said about purchasing a bag holder stand. And so many of you told me about this trick to use your jar lifter, and no lie, after I posted that video I saw that same idea on Facebook and I was like, that's just brilliant. So we're trying it out. I just have my jar lifter standing like this and the bag around the top here. It's wrapped around. We're gonna see if it will stand the test. I'm dropping these in here. Look at that. I'm not really even sure this bag is big enough. I want to do like a pound per bag. I'm gonna weigh it in a second here. But like, how cool is that? So no need to buy a bag holder, which is great because like I said, if I'm using something in my kitchen, like it really needs to pull its weight. And you know, I just don't want a bunch of gadgets just laying around all over the place. So if something can be multi-purpose, I'm all about it. Let me grab my scale. Here it is. I'm gonna see if this is close to a pound. Well, it'd help if I had it in the right unit. Milliliters is not gonna get me anywhere. Just over a pound. That, zip this up and get the air out. I do want to invest into like one of those food saver vacuum sealers. That would, I need to lay it flat first. that would come in handy. But I'm just making do with what I have right now, and that's just some freezer Ziploc bags. So I'm gonna package all this gnocchi up. As soon as it starts to boil over there, we'll get some cooking. All right, water is boiling. Need to grab some salt. Just want to salt the water a little bit. We are gonna add in our gnocchi. Whoops. Gnocchi is super easy to tell when it's done. It will come to the surface and float. I'm just gonna stir it up, make sure nothing's sticking. It should only take a few minutes. All right, as the gnocchi is finished over here, I'm gonna strain that off, get all the water off. I'm gonna put it right into my butter. Now, I took half the butter out of this pan and reserved it. I do wanna fry these up just a little bit. I like gnocchi with just slight crispness to the outside, at least with certain dishes. And that's it. We're gonna let this go for just a little bit, serve it with some sausage, drizzle some more of the sauce over the top, maybe garnish it with some sage leaves, and there's dinner. My, do these smell heavenly. Alright, we just finished dinner. It was wonderful. My kids even loved it. My husband had no idea that there was sweet potato in it until I told him, so that's a win. Everybody has really enjoyed the sweet potato muffins as well. My kids already had one each, and they're not overly sweet, the muffin themselves, so that crumble mixture did on top really makes it really yummy. So now we're gonna move on to an idea that I had. I wanted to do like a breakfast cookie, something I feel good about giving my kids in the morning, but that looks appealing to them. I'm thinking just going to be some sweet potatoes, some quick oats, maple syrup, and vanilla. And we're gonna bake them for a little bit, and we're gonna see how that turns out. I think it should be pretty good. So I have 2/3 cup of pureed sweet potato. I'm doing a cup quick oats. I put a 1/4 cup of maple syrup in here, and I'm gonna do a big splash of vanilla. Probably at least a teaspoon's worth. And I'm gonna grab, let's see here, grab a spoon and get this all mixed, together. Making a mess already. You could also add some chocolate chips in here, but I'm just trying to make it as healthy as possible while still tasting good. We're gonna see how this turns out. So there's that mixture. I'm gonna get a cookie sheet here, scoop some dollops on there, and grab a new sheet. I'm just going to scoop some out here. Have it down into a nice circle. I don't think they're really going to spread very much, but could be wrong. that gave me 8 cookies. I'm gonna get these into the oven, and I'm probably gonna bake them 350 for about 12 to 15 minutes, and we'll see how they look then. Moving right along, next recipe, I want to do some sweet potato biscuits. I've got 1.5 cups of sweet potato puree in here. I'm gonna add in 3 cups of flour. I'm gonna do 5 teaspoons of baking powder. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then just 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, teaspoon of salt, 6 tablespoons of melted butter. We're gonna add 1 cup of buttermilk, and then just 2 tablespoons of sugar. I'm using coconut sugar again. Gonna get this all mixed up, and then we will roll it out and cut out some biscuits. All right, got them mixed until they are just combined, and our cookies are done. I gotta go check on them. I gave my breakfast cookies a try, and I must say they're pretty good. I'm honestly surprised that those 4 ingredients made something so yummy. I really enjoy them. I hope my kids do. I'll report back. But I am sure there's like tons of variations you could do on these, and I feel pretty good about giving them to my kids in the morning. You know, as long as I give them like a side of some sort of breakfast meat, maybe some fruit as well. Sure, you can have a cookie for breakfast. Why not?
I rolled out my biscuit dough to about 1/2 inch thick, cut out with a biscuit cutter. These will go onto a parchment lined cookie sheet at 400 degrees for about 15 to 17 minutes, or until the edges are just lightly golden brown.
We're on the last recipe, and then this mama has to get cleaning up. We have company coming over to our house tomorrow, and it's a bit of a disaster in here, and it's like 7:30 at night, so we gotta get this stuff done. But this is the last of my sweet potato puree, and I'm gonna make a whole bunch of sweet potato pancakes to keep in the freezer. Matt and I are going away here in the next few weeks, and my parents will be staying with the kids. I want to have some things in the freezer for them to pull out for breakfast and snacks. I'm gonna make some dinners, but I figured some sweet potato pancakes in the freezer would be good. So I've got about 2.5 cups of sweet potato puree. I'm throwing in 4 eggs. Gonna add 3 teaspoons of vanilla. Gonna do 2 teaspoons each of baking soda and baking powder. Got 1, 2, 1, 2. Half teaspoon of salt. About 4 tablespoons of maple syrup. That's probably more than 4 tablespoons, but oh well. I'm sure it'll taste good. Gonna throw in some pumpkin pie spice. Is this one open? No, it's not. 4 tablespoons. No, not tablespoons, teaspoons of pumpkin pie spice. You can do less if you don't want it too spiced, but I think they're good when they're spiced. 4 tablespoons of melted butter going in. Gonna add 1/2 cup of milk, approximately. I really just eyeball everything. And I've got about 3 cups of buttermilk going in. The last thing we're gonna do is add in some flour. I need 5 cups. All right, we're gonna whisk these all up, and then we're gonna get them over to the frying pan, get them cooking. Those look lovely. Perfect with a fall soup. Alright friend, that wraps up today's video. This mama's tired and I got some cleaning up to do. I gotta package everything up, put it away, clean up my kitchen and the rest of my house, and then get to bed. I hope you enjoyed coming along with me, harvesting some sweet potatoes or lack thereof, and spending some time in my kitchen with me. Have a blessed day, and I will see you next time. Take care.